أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على رسولنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأتباعه وسلم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So we have been discussing the verses in Quran which talks about how to invite. And in general, we also take Quran itself is a book of invitation. So teaching us how to convey the message of Quran to ourselves and to others. So first week, we talked about how this is a innate human responsibility. And Quran speaking of this for the Prophet, but also for any believer as a description of a believer, saying that a believer would convey the message. And then last week, we talked about conveying the message with wisdom. And when mentioning this, we talked about two major aspects as far as I remember. The first meaning was to take a wise attitude when conveying the message, like making it in a proper way. But then a secondary meaning was highlighting the wisdom in the message of Quran, not simply as something since Quran says so, it must be true so, but rather highlighting the wisdom, especially in this day and age, as Quran speaks to our wisdom in general. And we did not talk about priorities last week, right? So in terms of priorities, let's start from here. Here I have a narration from Aisha radiallahu anha from Sahih al-Bukhari. But before getting to here, Quran was revealed in 23 years. So it was a step-by-step revelation. And since everybody's already started reading it, so maybe I should pause and let you read. But Quran uses two terms for revelation. One is anzalna, the other one is nazzalna. So same verb, but in two different forms. One is indicating being revealed all at once. Another one is being revealed stage by stage. Like both word appears in Surah Al-Qadr, which probably you already have memorized. So, inna anzalnahu fi laylatil qadr. Indeed, we have revealed it in the night of Qadr, Laylatul Qadr. Wa ma adraka ma Laylatul Qadr. How would you know what Laylatul Qadr is? Laylatul Qadr khayrun min alfi shahr. Laylatul Qadr is better than 8,000 months. Tanazzalul malaikatu war-ruhu fiha. Now the verb changes to tanazzalu rather than anzala, it becomes nazzala. So tanazzalul malaikatu war-ruhu fiha bi-idhni rabbihim. So throughout that night, angels and the spirit keeps descending down again and again. So chapter started with anzalna, but then at some point talked about nazzalna or nazzala. In other parts of Quran also both verbs are being used. So in a sense, if we ask the question, is Quran revealed? Yes, it is in my house, in a bookshelf, to me available all at once. But how much of that Quran got revealed to me, like the Nazzalna part, is a question mark for ourselves, because Quran reveals down to individuals step by step. Historically, it took 23 years, and I should ask the same question to myself: which part of Quran has been revealed to me yet? Because to the extent that I bear witness to parts of Quran, it gets revealed. And it's not only that once a verse gets revealed to you, you are done. As Surah Al-Qadr highlights, angels keep descending again and again and again. Like from the same verse, multiple meanings could have been revealed to you over your lifetime. So this being the case, practically speaking, now there's this narration. because one asks the question at this point, is Quran, since it got revealed stage by stage, but today I am reading it in a certain order, beginning to end. So what are the priorities in Quran for me? So I will keep reading it from beginning to end. Let's read it together. So while I was with Aisha radiallahu anha, the mother of the believers, a person from Iraq came and asked, what type of shroud is the best? Aisha said, may Allah be merciful to you. What does it matter? He said, O mother of the believers, show me the copy of your Quran. She said, why? He said, in order to compile and arrange the Quran according to it, for people recite it with its surahs not in proper order. Aisha said, what does it matter which part of it you read first? Be informed that the first thing that was revealed thereof was a surah from Al-Mufassal. Al-Mufassal is the shorter surahs at the end of the Quran. And in it was mentioned paradise and the fire. When the people embraced Islam, the verses regarding legal and illegal things, halal and haram things, were revealed.
These are still Aisha radiallahu anha.
Yes, I just made it in bullet points to make it more readable. But it is still Aisha radiallahu anha talking. And she says, be informed that the first thing that was revealed was from Surah Mufassal, and in it was mentioned paradise and the fire. When the people embraced Islam, like when the time came and people embraced Islam after this point, the verses regarding halal and haram things were revealed. If the first thing to be revealed was do not drink alcoholic drinks, people would have said, we will never leave alcoholic drinks. And if there had been revealed, do not commit illegal sexual intercourse, they would have said, we will never give up illegal sexual intercourse, zina. Then she continues, while I was a young girl of playing age, and this refers to Mecca period, the following verse was revealed in Mecca to Muhammad والسلام, nay, but the hour is their appointed time, and the hour will be more grievous and more bitter. Surah Al-Baqarah and Surah An-Nisa were revealed while I was with him. So the last two parts is mentioning the parts about like Day of Judgment, resurrection was revealed in Mecca, her childhood days. But when she was with the Prophet, now this refers to Medina part. She says Surah Al-Baqarah and Surah An-Nisa were revealed in the later parts. And Surah Al-Baqarah and especially Surah An-Nisa is the chapter which has the most verses about legal rulings. Then Aisha took out the copy of the Quran for the man and dictated to him the verses of the surahs.
That's the interesting part. Is, so what is the, roughly speaking, the like a time period between the what was it says Muhammad this 54 it's which chapter it is?
I need to check. I don't know.
Anyway, this is okay. Among the first, right? She says.
I mean, earlier period, yes.
Mm-hmm. And between earlier and later period, like a 20-something years up until Nisa comes, she calls, like she says, I was with him only when for the later parts. Mm-hmm. Like she was in his household, but still she wouldn't call it as I was with him.
Mm. Maybe, yeah. A few things that attracts my attention in here is the person comes by asking which shroud, what type of shroud is the best? Like this is an interesting question because like in Turkey, for example, there are people who are selling shroud which doesn't burn.
Shroud, just to explain,
like the white
cloth that you
cloth
put on the dead.
that people unwrap the dead people when they're putting them to grave, like shroud. So the person comes and asks, what type of shroud is the best? Like, and Aisha radiallahu anha says, like, how irrelevant of a question is this? As if, like, don't you have another question to ask? Type of. So that's an interesting question. And this person is asking that question, it's a believer. And then she is highlighting priorities to a believer. This is also interesting. Like, she's not saying, oh, since you're a believer, let's talk about, yes, type of shroud, it's important. She doesn't say that. She just says what was first revealed was so important, which is being overlooked. Like, even for a believer, this is being mentioned. But we are discussing this in the context of how to convey message to people out there, as probably this guy's second question was also about, saying that people are reading Quran out of order. Tell me the proper order from your mushaf. But she is saying that first, look for yourself. Did you set up your priorities properly? Because what type of shroud shouldn't be being asked to me at this point? And also, given that this person is coming from Iraq, like, are you coming from all the way from there to ask that not so important question? So it looks like your priorities got messed up.
And the second question about the order in Quran, he's not asking it for himself. Like, he's not looking from a scholarly perspective. Like, from a scholarly perspective, it makes sense. Like, if you want to know how the revelation goes, but he says the people are reciting it in the wrong order, I will teach them, kind of. So this mindset is same as the mindset of the best shroud.
It sounds funny, right? But literally in Turkey, people do sell shroud, which is like washed and rinsed with rose water, and also a certain supplication is just recited on it or something. Like, you can make money out of this even today, but it looks like it's not that new of a thing. So as long as human is there, such things would be there. But I guess at this point, I should ask myself, what's my share from asking such questions? Yes, Sister Zari.
Yes, I understand the general concept, but it seems there still is an importance for what order the Quran is read in, because part of what this narrative was mentioning is like the verses regarding legal legal rulings. So doesn't that imply that, perhaps I couldn't read this part first if I'm not secure in like the parts that are referring to the hour of the day of judgment, resurrection, and things. So isn't there still maybe a general order?
Yes, I mean, that is important, but this is what Aisha radiallahu anha is correcting. There's an importance, but not the way you are looking for. Because if you look at it from the proper order that the guy is looking for in the Mus'haf, Baqarah is going to be at the beginning. But Aisha radiallahu anha said, no, look at the Mufassal, the latest, like in the today's Mus'haf order, the ones that came at the very end were the ones that were revealed earlier than the rest. And these might be more important, well, actually are more important for you in terms of your priorities than the others. You can still seek wisdom on today's order of Quran, but she's just waking us up from our maybe obsession about do's and don'ts. Do's and don'ts are important, very important after, or to the extent, let me not say after, but to the extent that Iman is established. Like, it's not one is before the other, but to the extent that Iman is established, then do's and don'ts becomes making them real in your life. So if I say before, after, it would feel like, oh, let's for the next 10 years, let's study Iman exclusively. And once I get somewhere, then I will start practicing. This is why I'm correcting myself. It's not before after, but to the extent that Iman gets established in my life, then do's and don'ts are going to be manifesting them in my day-to-day activities. But trying to make it the other way around is what she is warning me against. And in this regard, now that this is the case for me, if we take it back to our conversation, inviting others or conveying the message to others, where would you start from?
It's just the mind, like the image about Islam. But if somebody asks, what is Islam? What is the first thing that can come to our minds? Oh, we cover our hair. We don't eat pork. We celebrate Ramadan. This type of stuff, right? It's never about the appointed hour, paradise, fire.
Yeah.
Never about, or illegal sexual intercourse, alcoholic drinks. These type of things first come, right?
Mhm.
But about the belief, no.
And what do you think about the specifically Aisha radiallahu anha focusing on the hour? That was interesting to me. Like she could have also highlighted Tawheed, but she mentioned the hour. Anything that attracts your attention about the appointed hour? And that's a fact. Quran, I mean, yes, in the first revelation, in the first few surahs, it was خَلَقَ الْإِنسَانَ مِنْ عَلَقٍ, for example, the creation, the creator. But right after the very first chapters, revealed historically in their order of historicity, death, appointed hour, qiyamah was mentioned. What is the wisdom in here when setting up the priorities? What do you think? Yeah.
I guess a lot of things come to mind, but I guess the most obvious one is it's in the human nature to, like, I guess, fear these things. And I think that this is again, like, even in secular education, we know that death is certain. And people are typically, afraid of death. So, like, this is a good I would say reminder, but not really reminder. But it's a good way of, like, thinking about this first is important, because we want to know that our life is not finite. Like, we would want to, if there's a possibility that there's something else after, and we would want to, like, know it and act on it.
Mm-hmm. And that's correct. We all know that is there. But how much do we remember it in the current secular context? Like, is that a part of life? Or is it something that's being pushed away? Yeah.
I guess maybe to the extent that we realize we're accountable for how we live our life, then we remember death. Then, like, death becomes more of a priority, because that's the point in which it's over. And I think, like, the more you are conscious that there is an hour and there is an accountability for the way you are living your life, that actually is like, how do you call it? I don't know, triggers you, or it shocks you, or it wakes something up in you, because I think also it's interesting when she says, when I was a young girl, like, playing age and then the hour, because the juxtaposition of the hour and playing comes up sometimes in some ayahs of the Qur'an, like when I forgot the name, but like the the ayah kind of says what means the hour is approaching and people are people. The hour is approaching and people are playing, or people are thinking of other things, and the hour is approaching. That the hour approaching, meaning that that's the end. So, you know, the priority now is what's going to happen to you. That's the thing that sets the priority.
In your conversation with your friends, how frequently death is coming up?
What?
Death, the conversation. Does the conversation ever come to death when you talk to friends? No. It's something that we avoid, actually. Yeah.
And I was thinking how it's like also it's something that we're investing a lot of money, time, and energy to try to prevent, right? Like we are like, oh, maternal deaths on the way, so let's do that. Oh, cardiovascular health value, this much death. Like we have so much statistics around AIDS that to try to prevent it, and nevertheless, it still happens, and it's one of our biggest expense actually that we can think of. So to try to prevent it.
It's sort of elephant in the room. Everybody is sort of aware of it, but at the same time, everybody's trying to push it away. Like if it was like definitely it not being discussed, at least as much as Bitcoin prices, it's more real than Bitcoin, or gold prices, or Russia sending a nuclear bomb, which is way less likely than me dying at some point, right? But these are the type of things that we have a conversation about. Death is not being mentioned. This is a deliberate choice. Not only the people out there, also in terms of me. Like I avoid getting in there because it spoils the joy. Like death is spoiling the joy, so I don't want to remember it.
When you say we will die or you will die, the first thing in Turkish dialects, for instance, comes in, oh, say Toba, like, don't say that.
Oh, yeah. So even we would say, what's it? There's a saying, okay, like bullets to the ear of Satan, like Satan should not hear it, as if death is going to come if Satan hears it, so whatever that means. But it's something that we wouldn't like to culturally mention. But even more so, like, just give it a try. You can test it when you guys are having a lunch with your friends in your next lunch break. Somehow bring the topic to, oh man, we are going to die one day. Just with a deep breath. It looks like I'm going to die, man. Like, or something like this, and see what happens, just as an experiment. So we do avoid, and there's a hadith, Prophet ﷺ says, increase reminder of spoiler of joys, which is death. So Qur'an is intentionally bringing death up in the conversation, because joys, which are temporary things, are making me busy. So it is like your friend is playing games and you said that, oh, you know what? Midterm is 3 days later. Like your friend knows that midterm is 3 days later, but he doesn't want to remember it. That's why he's just trying to play more, just to forget that. So rather than saying that, oh, actually, you know what? There's a new game. You should remind your friend about death or midterm. That's why Quran started with reminding us of appointed hour, which reminds you of your appointed hour. Like this, even the globe is going to explode at some point. Do you think you won't explode? So reminding us about that.
So when it comes to believers, like a reminder in terms of the scaling, or what is it? The something of joy you said in the hadith. What is the word? Spoil. Yes, spoil of the joy. It makes sense. It acts like a reminder, right? But if you're talking about dawah, like spreading the word, if we use the fear as our tactic, I think we will miss the wisdom there, right? Because like if you go to tell your friend that the midterm is in 3 days, he will probably stop talking to you. That will happen if this is your goal. Let's say that, oh yeah, I spoiled with joy and that's my business. Then yeah. But when it comes to that and the appointed hour, it acts in different ways as well, which we can, I guess, should be more focusing on. One thing, it's like a great tool for discussion on tafsir. Because when we say appointed hour and the death, we can also talk about the death of the things that we have. Like, for instance, the person losing himself in a game, reminder of another game, and then by doing so, saying that, we keep playing these games, and they're just dying, and like our joy is also dying with them, and there's no end. It's actually a good start for La ilaha, right? Showing that the game itself cannot give us joy. It cannot be source of the joy. We have to keep renewing it and so on. So that can be used in this way. Another thing is also historically, when we look at the people accepting the Islam with first set of revelations, they didn't accept it because they were so scared. Somebody coming and threatening them, they will get punished. If you take it that way, you will just get away from this guy. Like, why you should even listen. But it is actually a good news, glad tidings of whatever they are surrounded with, all these injustices, the slaves, right, at that time, the poverty, difficulties, they will be destroyed. So that's also what that means. That's okay. Oh,
yeah. So I guess in terms of death being a threat, like rather than it being a threat, like you're going to burn in hellfire or something, because the guy doesn't believe in God, let alone believe in an afterlife. So that's not the main point about reminding death, but it's about your joys are dying every day. Eventually you will die. Even this world will die because I'm making so much investments for what? Like, one day it's going to be taken away from your hand altogether, but even they are being taken away from you day by day. Whatever is given to you is being taken away from you. Separation is more painful than the joy of getting together. So such reminders are making message relevant. Otherwise, the message becomes irrelevant. Just another way of talking, another way of clothing, yet another way. But message is necessary because it talks about such perspectives. Yeah. You had a comment? No? Okay, I thought you raised your hand. So message then becomes relevant because of this transitoriness of life. Then I ask the question, why am I here? Okay. Any comments? Oh yeah, priorities about the do's and don'ts. How about the priorities of do's and don'ts? Practically, how do you do that then? Somebody new comes. How would you convey the message to them about do's and don'ts? Yes.
Do this, why do you do this? I feel like sometimes, I mean, I can say certain wisdoms, like for example, with alcohol, it's harming you, there's no safe level that is like actually beneficial for you, like even if it feels good in the moment. But I feel like for other things, like, if someone were to ask me, like, why should I believe this? I feel like that would be, or why should I follow this rule if science, for example, shows like an alternative that is just as good, or just as appearing like just as beneficial. So I feel like it's important to maybe get at the heart of the message to someone before going into the do's and don'ts, because I guess like this like I said, Abdullah one that is narrating that if you just go in with the rules, I feel like the first instinct is like I don't want to leave them. Like I benefit in this right now, like in my worldview. So I guess the importance is changing the worldview to better reflect the actual reality of the situation.
Practically, how would you feel though? Let's say somebody new comes in, your neighbor, and they're living boyfriend, girlfriend in the same house. And like you see the person each day, or maybe as your like director is going to running, then she also joins her running. And after a month's conversation and whatnot, she started getting interested in the message. And then she says, okay, I am embracing Islam. Then what does director say? No. With your boyfriend? No way. Like, how would the dynamics work then? Practically speaking, at some point, those, I guess, practical things would become a question. At least in your mind, you would have a hard time figuring out, saying that rule is there. I cannot make it halal to you, my dear. Sorry. But then how would you deal with it? Right? It's practically a hard question. Yes.
It kind of goes back to what we were saying about so long as to the extent that you have to the extent that you develop the man and start really appreciating the message, because like the things that are forbidden, I gotta say Allah dislikes this or likes this. Like you start kind of seeing it that way, like, oh, this is becoming something that isn't, that I don't like it. I feel like for me, for some things, that was the case where I might have been doing something that probably wasn't liked. And then the more I learned about Islam and the more I came to like discussions, the more I was surrounded by the message, I began to not like that thing. So I think it may take time and just being constantly, or as much as possible, being in spaces.
Yeah. I guess as long as that person is, and in our case, like this person was genuinely over time interested in the message. So it would be unfair to expect an overnight change in this person's behavior. And the reason I gave the example with boyfriend, girlfriend example is because in this society, it's almost taken like if it's a committed relationship and whatnot, almost taken like marriage in this society, almost. So, and then imagine somebody's getting married, and then the next day you say that you have to divorce in order to get into here. So it's like emotionally, it's a very hard choice to make. So is the person's belief stronger than their love at this point? Because probably that love has been established over years. So making such a decision is going to be tough. So in this case, I guess avoiding judgment or saying that it's not our focus at the moment. Like, yes, this is how it is. The rule is established, it is there, but you are not there yet. So let's talk about the fundamentals, why this message matters and whatnot. Then eventually, if you are convinced enough, then you will make your choice accordingly. So giving such a gradual change is going to be important. Yep.
And when Aisha radiallahu anha says, if the first thing to be revealed was, so we shouldn't read it as if all the verses were there, but this person Muhammad, not the prophet, but the person Muhammad, he chose to reveal them one by one in a certain order because it would be easier to manage people. But we tend to read it that way. Like it makes more sense to not to scare people, not to talk about alcohol or boyfriend-girlfriend relationships. It is the revelation from God. So it means the wisdom she's referring to, it's not like a social trick. It's the one who creates human does that. So we should take it as more fundamental. For someone who is not familiar with Tawheed, who is not familiar with the owner of the dreams, you cannot tell him that you don't drink alcohol, because if you do that, he will read it, the order, in the name of you. You forbidding them to alcohol. So it's not part of Islam. It's the social power play then. Unless they are convinced, I know for us it's hard to say that unless you convince the alcohol wouldn't be haram for you and so on. For us, it's a different situation because we claim to be believers. But if you're talking about someone who's not familiar with the religion, you cannot take it as haram from his perspective. It is not. Just like it was not haram for the Sahaba companions before it was ordered not to drink. Mm-hmm. He has to be convinced that there's an owner of these drinks, and this owner has certain choices. The same goes with the illegal sexual intercourse. There's somebody who owns my body, my relationships, etc. So for your friend with a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship, there's no such thing, like conceptually, there's no such thing as such a relationship being wrong. And you cannot mention it, because if you do, you mention it, as I said, in the name of the social power statute that you have. There's no way that they will understand it in a different way.
So one thing that I would guess for some people might arouse a little bit of a discomfort at this point is, like from the other side, it would be, oh, am I giving fatwa to something? Like, because this person is asking it to me, am I giving a fatwa for this person? And if it is still wrong, am I going to be shouldering their sin? So I guess this could be another way to take it. Yeah.
Considering, I was just thinking of like even in countries where Islam is fairly, let's say, well established, if the reverse is done, like we start with these rulings, it actually becomes more cultural. Like at least that's how it is in my community. It's extremely like it feels very cultural because the focus is so much on like clothing, who's doing what, like are you wearing the proper attire outside? Basically, manners that I can detect on the outside. And I think then it's really hard to go back the other way because it has established soil as a cultural thing. And so I do think even if we did go the other way, we don't have to go so far, we can just stay in our own community. It's actually much harder.
And as Brother Ali always says, these people who are doing the reverse, most of them, let's be just naive, but most of them not doing because they are against the religion or tawheed. They are doing it because they are against the culture. So when you impose such a thing in the name of culture, then you are indulging their, the opposition. So it is very sensitive topic. Yes, I agree. But I guess it is more dangerous.
The other side.
other side of it, which is losing people in the name of your statue.
I guess even if the exterior appearance is there, like let's say the person accepts this pressure, maybe for the fear of being burned in hell, although unsure if it would happen, but still, you never know, just to play safe. Deep inside, though, it might be like weakening an already super weak belief, or harboring some sort of enmity at some point because I have to do it, but I'm not even convinced in the first place. I know why I'm doing this. This is why in like the attitude is interesting. Aisha radiallahu anha is just saying that shift your attention. Like she didn't explicitly say that it's not important or anything of this sort either, but the way we read the text, it says shift your attention here. You had a comment there?
George, I was also just thinking about like raising children, because it feels like a lot of the time that is how we, but in general, how a lot of people parent is first like establishing what the child can and can't do. So it feels like we are brought up with these rules first. And I guess even like in a like quote unquote Muslim context, that child upon growing up will still have to embrace Islam like in their own way, like once they reach an age of reasoning. But it still feels like those things are revealed to us first, like even in our culture, like I guess our cultural context. So I guess is there a way to, I guess I'm just thinking about parenting, is there a way to like convey things to children without these rules?
So when it comes to children, it's an interesting case because like I sit next to Zainab, let's say, and start talking about there has to be one God, or there's going to be death, like which is hard to comprehend for a child anyways. And it's also hard to teach children anything directly because you just play with them, especially up until ages, I don't know, 7, 8 maybe, if not longer. So, but they do like a sponge, like they do capture whatever is in the air. So I think the better way of communication with the kids would be the conversation at home. Like, because even the attitude, from the attitudes to things themselves, they would capture things like seriousness of, like if I'm just, which is the case with me, let's say, whenever I am hungry, I just grab food and eat. This is, in fact, disrespectful to the provider of food. But if the child sees me within a certain like consciousness when I'm eating something and offering my thanks when I eat something, like these are the things that are being embedded very deep into consciousness of the child. This is what is embedding, oh, my father is thanking someone. Like I thought he bought it with his money, but it looks like he's thanking somebody else for eating the food itself in the first place. Like this is a very deep conscious message saying that there is an owner of this food. So this is why for the kids, things are a little different. But in this society, so I guess number one is having the environments. This is why first and foremost, you need to live the message so that child is going to learn. So child is being your educator in this case, actually. It's being an environment, giving you an opportunity, your creator is giving you an opportunity to learn and to live by saying this, look, there's this clean sheet of paper. Aren't you ashamed of yourself? Like, how are you representing it? So it's not, as again, Brother Ali would say, there is no child education. He says it's parental education. Like you get educated in this endeavor. You don't teach the child teaches it. So taking it as such. But of course, there's this extra layer that's going on with the current culture, because children are comparing with others quite early. Zainab was like over the weekend swinging with our Jewish neighbor's daughter. So she says, oh, we are celebrating Christmas. So she says, I'm half Jewish, half Christian. This is why I celebrate both Christmas and Passover. What do you guys celebrate? Like an external entity is forcing to bring the conversation to an irrelevant point. So what do you do? Like, that's what then the child is going to ask. When things start getting a little different, like I guess this needs to be addressed separately. There was a comment that I wanted to read. So Sister Munni says, when you have a terminal disease, God forbid, you know that your appointed hour is almost over. People with such diseases like cancer comprehend this in a hard way. Very correct. And I guess in our conversation, we should bring it to our attention as well, that we are dying. And whenever I have appetite for something, if you would like to make it as a reflex for yourself, give it a try for a week at least. What happens when you remember death? Like you want to buy a new clothes, you want to buy a new food, remembering death, how does it affect your appetite or attitude towards this joy?
I could buy two of them. I don't have much time.
Oh, yeah. Yes. So, yeah. So I guess priorities, setting priorities is important. And also knowing that I'm not giving fatwa to anybody, but also the fear of what if am I going to make this halal to that person and shoulder their sins? The other aspect that Brother Birkan mentioned, what if I put this before that person and they're not going to handle it and leave religion because of that? Are you ready to shoulder this? So, which is another side of the coin. So it looks like in either case, you are doomed. Which one would you like to choose? I guess taking wisdom. And this is how it would happen if this person was coming to you. I mean, the reason for this anxiety is coming from some sort of mysticism around heaven and hell, fire, responsibility. But when it comes to if the person was coming and asking you, shall I do a PhD? Like you're a PhD student, you know about it. Shall I do a PhD? Student comes and genuinely asks you. You would give a very informed answer about pros and cons of it. You can say, well, tell me about yourself. What are your goals in life? Which background are you coming from? Like you will first listen to the student and then give a suggestion accordingly. You can do the same when it comes to the message itself. So if it's violating the priorities, you would say that maybe there are more important things that you need to worry about first. Matters of Iman is to be worried about first. Let's clean this up. To the extent that you're convinced about this, you will realize the importance of do's and don'ts and whatnot. Then, because it's already in the air. Like everybody knows that Islam prohibits zina. You don't need to even remind anybody about this. But when the time comes, it will start kicking. Okay, so this is step by step, which was what I mentioned before, but let's read it from Qur'an. So, نزل عليك الكتاب بالحق مصدقا لما بين يديه وأنزل التوراة والإنجيل. It is he who sent down to you step by step, in truth, the book, confirming what went before it, and sent down the law and the gospel. So, نزل in here is the verb that we are focusing on rather than أنزل here. So Quran is mentioning as it was revealed to the messenger stage by stage, but also read it for yourself. Your creator is saying that I also do not reveal it to you all at once. Practically, you cannot. Even if you have memorized Quran, it's not there all at once. So it's going to come down to you step by step. من قبل هدى للناس وأنزل الفرقان. Before this, as guide to mankind, he sent down the criterion. إن الذين كفروا بآيات الله لهم عذاب شديد والله عزيز ذو انتقام. So I put these two verses just to contrast نزل عليك in here and من قبل هدى للناس وأنزل الفرقان. In this case, it's mentioning it as أنزل. He revealed Quran all at once. Oh, actually, then let me talk about two things. I don't know if you will ever encounter this, but just in case. This is the distinction between anzala and nazzala. If you listen to it from classical scholarship, you will hear a lot of stories around it, actually. It would say, Quran is revealed to the heavens at this night, or when the prophet at once, when the prophet first received the revelation, and then in 23 years from that skies, that heavens got revealed down to the prophet in 23 years. I mean, at this point, we should pause and ask, what is its relevance to me, though? Like making such a distinction, because it really unwraps message into mysticism, quite a bit of a mystery.
I mean, to me, it's like just trying to save the words, save the Quran.
Yeah, it sounds like we are trying to, there's a problem, and I'm trying to come up with a cover story.
Resolving the contradiction.
Apparent contradiction, yeah. So, but if we are taking it serious and saying that, what does this mean to me? What does it mean that the Quran is revealed all at once? Or versus Quran being revealed stage by stage? Both of them are available to you today. In one sense, yes, Quran is revealed to you all at once. Or you can even take it as the general message of Quran is available to you, yet Quran is going to get revealed to you over your lifetime, stage by stage. Even the same verse is going to be revealed to you multiple times. So this is something to keep in mind when this distinction appears.
And also you can read, if it is a hadith narration, about the skies, first being revealed to skies and then heavens, and then step by step. You can also take it as a metaphorically, meaning with the first revelation, prophet now having access to revelation can make the connection between the heavens, the creation, and the guide. Now the access is there with the first revelation. The door is open. The method is given. Right? Before it is guide or like an unseen altogether, no access to revelation. There is no way to make sense of anything in the creation. But with the first revelation, doors are open. Although the clear answer is not given yet, you can still, using the first few verses, you can still make sense of the creation, the heavens, and start receiving the rest of it.
Yeah. The second thing that I was going to say about stage by stage rulings, like certain rulings. Let's take the ruling about alcohol. It was initially said that when you are drunk, don't get close to the prayer. This was one verse. Then another verse which totally prohibits alcohol. There's also an opinion, scholarly opinion, which says, oh, the first verse was abrogated by the second verse. Because for you right now, it's not that you do not get close to prayer when you're drunk. You don't drink at all. But as now we discussed, actually the first verse is still valid to you from a different perspective, which is showing you the stage-by-stageness of the Quran. So to the extent that you are convinced about Quran, one of the other is becoming more relevant to you. Yeah.
Verses in the Quran.
Yes.
So how, like, How is it not a contradiction?
So this is how it is not being a contradiction. So Quran is addressing you in different positions and saying that to the extent that you are here, this is what applies to you. I mean, if I'm going to take it, again, you can take every verse as a matter of belief or an application and legal rulings. So, which is another thing to consider really. If we take Quran as a book of do's and don'ts, then it becomes justifiable to say that such and such verses are useless anymore. Because really this perspective of abrogation is going to make them not applicable anymore. Thus, you can even remove it from the book itself. But as we discussed, Quran is one aspect of it is a book of law, but many other things, which means you will find messages in the other verses as well. One of the messages that we find as part of this discussion is state-by-stateness. So to the extent that the person is not there to give it up completely, that still applies to that person. And you can even generalize it now that you see the two verses. One is talking about the previous stage, one is talking about the next stage. The presence of both at the same time in the scripture gives you a greater message saying that, how about other things in my life that require gradualness? Not like you can take it as only talking about alcohol, but you can also say it as alcohol is just a sample. In one, it's saying that it's partially, the other one, it's totally forbidden. So in my life, there are things which I'm not ready to totally get rid of, but partially get rid of it. Something such as, I'm just going to pick it up. Don't use Instagram 15 minutes before your prayers because it's just distracting your attention so much. Yeah, it's intoxicating you. So before the prayer, because I know you are so much addicted to it. So if I say quit Instagram altogether, it's going to be hard for you. But at least 15 minutes before, as you are going to, let's say, take wudu and whatnot, after this point, do not dirty yourself with Instagram up until you finish your prayer. So you can take it as such as well, saying that, because if you take it from a strictly legal point of view, you would say, oh no, like Instagram has nothing to do with alcohol. Alcohol has this specific chemical compound. Instagram is not even a chemical thing. But you can say, well, both are intoxicating. I can relate to that. So there's no explicit ruling about Instagram because none of our classical scholars were out there when Instagram came out. But you can extrapolate it for yourself today, which makes both verses relevant for you even today. So it's not being a contradiction because it highlights the presence of gradualness at every facet of your life. This is why both verses are there. This is why it was not like Prophet said, okay, this verse, we are done with it. Let's remove it from the Mus'haf, and we will continue with the most up-to-date verse. So this is an important thing, because there's a pattern also in line with the person that was asking question, Aisha radiallahu anha, to take religion exclusively as do's and don'ts. Then you have to come up with such theories of abrogation, but then it comes with its own problems, saying that there are verses which are irrelevant at the moment. So this is why we need to be having a wider perspective. From one perspective, yes, in terms of alcohol, it is totally forbidden. But from another perspective, for your friend who lives with his boyfriend right now and like drinking alcohol here and there, if she's not there yet, then for her, the first verse is still applicable. And for you, you have been a believer and you don't drink alcohol, the same verse applies for Instagram or anything else. So let's not freeze Quran and make it so, because sometimes it happens that we are trying to make Quran like traffic laws, uninterpretably clear. Since Quran says this is a Furqan, like it's a clear Quran, so it must be as clear as stop at red light no matter what. Like, and the text of Quran is not such a text at all. So sometimes we are really shooting ourselves in the foot by what we are trying to impose on Quran. Since it's clear, it must be clear to me in the first read. Is it really? It definitely is not, because I do not even speak Arabic. So what sort of clearness? Where do you define clearness really? Sometimes we are really making it hard and irrelevant or totally nonsensical when we like impose those understandings of
Even the word like a furqan, farq, right? The difference, like a differentiating right and wrong. It's heavily loaded with guidance. Like when you differentiate between two things, you kind of teaching me what is the difference between them. It's not just, the setting right and wrong. It's not telling me this is right, this is wrong. No, it is teaching me
how to distinguish.
how to distinguish between the two and what makes them different. As Quran says, like it's not the same knowing or unknowing. If you take it from literal perspective, you would say this is like a child book. Even in the child books, they say something more interesting. Of course, knowing and not knowing is not the same. And Quran teaching me that sometimes you think you know, sometimes you think you don't know, and I will teach you what is knowing and what is not knowing.
Jazakallah khairan. Any concluding remarks, questions, comments?
But be gentle. Not gently. So I said be gentle.
Oh, I see. I didn't notice that.
Your last comments should be gentle.
Gentle. Okay. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين الفاتحة